A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Sunday evening. I hope you're all having a good weekend. And if you're not, I wonder why not. Because let's be honest, the game against Arsenal on Saturday and the result should have all put us in a very good mood, shouldn't it? I'm going to do a reflection of that game and a bit of analysis on the team selection that Graham Potter put out. And if you're new to this channel, or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before, but if you've yet to become a subscriber, please do consider subscribing. Costs nothing to subscribe, and all the content is free. And whether you're new, passing through, or an existing subscriber, please do make sure you hit the like button at the end of this show. So, if there is one thing to assure West Ham fans is mood being lifted, that of course is getting a result when we least expect it. Over the years, we've done this on a number of occasions. And after the last two games against Arsenal, where we got thumped 6-0 and 5-2 respectively, not one person expected us to walk away with anything from Arsenal at their ground on Saturday afternoon. Maybe we were expecting a slightly less humiliating scoreline, with several West Ham fans suggesting that if we only lost by a 4-goal margin, then that would show some level of progress on the previous two games against them. Imagine then at the end of 101 minutes played and not getting thumped. Not only not getting thumped, but keeping our first clean sheet since we played Southampton back on Boxing Day, and also getting 3 points in the bag as well. It was fraught, it was tense, it was a very nervy afternoon of football, but we did it. And yet again, bamboozling the pundits and fans alike by putting in a performance that stated that this was in no way a lucky win. But it was an orchestrated performance that was carried out to the letter of the law by every single West Ham player that was out on that pitch. Congratulations to Graham Potter and his backroom staff for having analysed how Leicester and Wolves before them kept Arsenal at bay for much of the games against them. But where both Leicester and Wolves failed in getting nothing from those games, West Ham prevailed. The game told me more about the progress that West Ham are making under Graham Potter than perhaps any of the other games that he's been in charge of so far. Potter will not have listened to the noise of, not selecting Cresswell. All fans don't want Cresswell to play. He will not have listened to the noise that because he's been training hard, Luis Guilherme must surely and absolutely 100% start ahead of Mohammed Kudus. And he would not have listened to the noise that just because we've got him on loan and just because he's our only fit striker at the moment, that Evan Ferguson should be starting every game at West Ham now that he's with us. You see, Potter listens to none of that. Aaron Cresswell played the full 101 minutes and he was absolutely superb. I'll come to him later. Mohammed Kudus played the whole game as well, and he too was superb and really created a lot of problems for that Arsenal defence. Evan Ferguson came on for the last 10 minutes or so of the game and didn't mope around that he hadn't started, and he led from the front line as if he had a massive point to prove to his Brighton employers, as well as maybe Graham Potter for the next game, maybe starting that one. This was a composed, an assured, a professional performance, and even the pundits had to applaud West Ham for how we went about our business on Saturday afternoon in North London. So let's look at the team news. Alphonse Areola continued to repay the faith that's been shown in him by Potter by doing the things that he had to do and doing them simply and effectively. Sure, understandably, his distribution still needs to be worked on, but he had 2 saves to make. The first was a thumping strike in the first half where all he did was just stand behind it, and the ball, he held the ball as if it was super glued to his gloves. We saw the shot from behind the goal, and to be honest, it was a really fierce shot, but he made it look easy, as if it was training ground practice. In the second half, Areola had one shot to save from Trossard with his feet, And that's all he had to do in the whole game. That one shot in the first half and that one shot in the second half. Now, many suggested that after the debacle of the Brentford goal last week, Areola might be dropped. But one could hardly blame him for where he made almost a treble save in that game to try and keep Brentford out. Because people were saying that those saves, they put the ball back into the danger zone, and a good goalkeeper would have sort of saved and sorted out of danger. Well, I don't know about that, to be quite honest with you. I think the poor defensive display against Brentford last week let him down much more than he himself. And defense would have been one of the things that Potter would have learnt about the Brentford game from last week. And if you look at the defense, as it stands right now, if you look at the defense, I suggested that Max Kilman plays much better in the center of a back three. And that would have been on Potter's mind. And what would he do in order to ensure that Kilman could play in that role in the center of a back three? And to be quite honest with you, the only player that we have available at this moment in time to afford Kilman that role is Aaron Cresswell. At this moment in time, he's the only player that we've got in the squad that is suited to playing on the left side of a back three to ensure that Kilman stays in the middle. Now, all credit has got to go to David Moyes a few years ago for having introduced Cresswell to that role. And all credit to Graham Potter for having followed suit and recalled the player back in that role. And then it only remained as to who might be starting on the right side of Kilman in defence. And that went to a recalled Jean-Claire Todibo, who played under Potter for the first time since coming back from his injury. And what a solid, organised and compact defensive performance they all put in. Arsenal couldn't find a way to unlock our defence. But it wasn't just the defence that takes credit for that. That's a whole team performance. And then even when Dinos came on for Todibo later in the second half, and all right, he gave a foul away in the D on the 18-yard box. But despite that, the Greek international played his part as well. Now, there was an awful lot of talk before the game that perhaps Ollie Scarles will get his first Premier League start. And, even though it was against Arsenal, it proved to be. Now, what a fantastic game the young lad had. And you could see from the pride on his face in the post-match interview just how much it meant to him for getting his first Premier League start. You've got to hand it to Graham Potter. You've got to give him credit in how he's managed Ollie Scarles since taking over at the club. Obviously, he threw him in at the deep end at the start in the FA Cup game against Aston Villa. But just when you thought, that game, even though Scarles played really, really well, that he would start on a regular basis, Potter didn't do that. Potter sensibly took him out of the firing line after that game. I guess the FA Cup game was one of those games where you go, might as well, nothing to lose. You win, lose or whatever, give him a chance. And it was great thinking for Potter to play him in that game. But since then, as I've said, Potter has taken him away from the firing line and he's given him time. He's played a bit against Fulham. He's played every game since, 9 minutes against Fulham, half an hour or so against Crystal Palace, half a game against Brentford and so on. And what superb management of Potter to just go, I'll give you a little bit more, get you acclimatized for the Premier League before you're ready to start. And all credit to Potter for having recognised that the young lad had to be managed throughout the Arsenal game as well. And this is where the experienced head of Aaron Cresswell comes back into play yet again. Now, look, many West Ham fans have written Cresswell off. I don't know, ever since maybe Europa League when he got sent off twice in those knockout games in the Europa League. But whilst I do believe that we will eventually have to replace all our aged players, it will not be any surprise to me one bit if 35-year-old Cresswell is one of the few players to get a contract extension at the end of this season. His wealth of knowledge is invaluable, especially when helping the likes of Ollie Scarles to settle in more and more. Look, Scarles is undoubtedly going to be our left back, our left wing back for years to come, maybe from next season. And what better player than having someone like Aaron Cresswell, an old pair of hands, someone that really knows the Premier League inside out, to guide Ollie Scarles through next season. So I can see the potential of Cresswell staying another season. And then you look on the left-hand side, with the back three, with Ollie Scarles on the left side as a wing back. And then you look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And if I hear one more time fans saying that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is no good going forward, he's not a wing back, and he should just stay as a right back, then I'm going to start asking you to start looking at some of the performances that Wan-Bissaka has put in this season, especially going forward. At 27 years of age, and for a mere £15 million from Man United, it's their massive loss as it is our gain. I do not understand how and why they allowed him to go for such a cheap price. He's a bargain at 15 million. Bargain of the decade for West Ham United in transfers, as far as I'm concerned. And we will be hard pushed to get a better deal for any player for that sort of money in any time soon. Averaging a player rating of around 7 out of 10 throughout the whole season. Averaging one key pass in every game. 2 goals, 2 assists so far this season. Creating so many chances with good strength in ball interception, in blocks. Fantastic dribbler of the ball, getting key crosses into the box. That showed, in a way, that he has been worth every penny that we've spent on him. And he turned Arsenal's defence inside out on Saturday. And what a great ball it was to get over to put on the head of Jarrod Bowen, who did a good old-fashioned diving. I love diving headers. A good old-fashioned diving header to win the game. Wan-Bissaka, for me, is miles ahead at this moment in time of any other player to win Hammer of the Year. And then you look at midfield with James Ward-Prowse, Thomas Souček, and Edson Alvarez. Now, I genuinely didn't think that Potter would have played all 3 players in midfield. But given the way we set up as a counter-attacking team against Arsenal, and given that we played 2 players up front, all of a sudden, having those 3 midfielders to crowd out the midfield made total sense. Edson Alvarez seems to be back at his best. He was immense. And guess what? He didn't get a yellow card. That's 2 games in a row now that he's not been showed a yellow card. And that has to be down to the way Potter has, what he's done with the player. Ensuring that he keeps his fire, keeps his battling spirit, but also trying to get the player to temper his approach so that he doesn't get yellow cards. Granted, he had a yellow card in each game before the Chelsea game, one at Fulham, one at Villa. But you can see how much more controlled he has become since then. And he has masterminded that midfield. He masterminded that midfield on Saturday. And so too did Thomas Souček and James Ward-Prowse. Souček, as I've described him before, is a disruptor. Sure, lack of skill. But who cares? He has other attributes that every single West Ham fan should be applauding. We've always loved a grafter in a team, and Souček is the epitome of that kind of player, which is why he's gotten picked by every West Ham head coach and manager who have managed him since he's been at the club. And as for James Ward-Prowse, well, what Lopetegui didn't see in the player, Potter is seeing in abundance. Assured, yet another grafter, a great distributor of the ball, and he has made a massive difference to our midfield on Saturday. It's going to be quite interesting to see how Potter sets the team up when Lucas Paquetá returns from injury in a few weeks' time. And then playing 2 up front away against Arsenal. I can't remember the last time we played 2 up front, full stop. But as I've said, the whole setup made a whole load of sense. 5 at the back with 2 wing backs, 3 in midfield to crowd out the midfield. And then Jarrod Bowen and Mohammed Kudus were just given the role of chase everything down, run for everything, hassle their defense, put them under pressure. And that's exactly what both players did. And they did it superbly on Saturday against Arsenal. They didn't give their defense 1 minute to sort of control the ball and carry it forward. Sure, Arsenal had a lot of the game, but when we were breaking and when we had the ball, we took it with aplomb. And both Jared Bowen and Mohammed Kudus did exceptionally well. Sure, whilst the headlines, of course, will be all about Bowen's 50th Premier League goal in a West Ham shirt, for me, Mohammed Kudus had the type of game where you just had to stand and applaud the player for the effort that he put in. You know, tireless running throughout the game. It didn't surprise me one bit that he wasn't subbed because he kept hassling Arsenal all through that 101 minutes that he played. One bit of criticism, I guess, for Kudus. He still hasn't got the full confidence back. But if you recall that in the late in the game, he squared the ball to Evan Ferguson when perhaps he should have taken the ball himself and carried on and tried to score. A fully confident Mohammed Kudus would have done that. But I think his confidence is coming back. And it's no surprise to me that Potter has stayed loyal to him in his team selection rather than dropping him, just like an awful lot of West Ham fans have been calling for. We're learning that Kudus is a confidence player. And if he had been dropped, I think his confidence would have taken a massive hit as well. So well done to him for such a superb performance and a proper team performance at that. It was the perfect game for West Ham. We absorbed the pressure. Okay. When Arsenal went 1-0 down, when Arsenal went one player down, I thought maybe we would have tried to control the game. But, you know, we did what we had to do. We contained them. It was it's not just the result that was pleasing, but it was the performance as well. And we did what we had to do as a team. You know, we stifled them. We allowed them possession in areas that weren't harming us. You know, even in the corners, we learned from that, from other teams, their set pieces. And it was nail biting every time they got a free kick or a corner, etc. You know, but we even did our homework on that and we snuffed out the danger there. Look, to me, I just think it was all right. It was nail biting, but going 1-0 up, we deserved it. We absorbed the pressure. We did what we had to do. We kept it compact, and it was just superb throughout the whole 101 minutes. We're now 13 points clear from the drop zone, and it's only going to take a couple of more wins out of the next dozen games that we've got to be guaranteed Premier League football for the rest of this for next season. And I think those wins are going to come sooner rather than later. And that, you know, the win against Arsenal away from home, it's a massive confidence boost. And who knows, we might go now on a winning streak. You know, get another 2 or 3 wins under our belts over the next few games. Let's see what happens. But then what we'll have is with Potter having maybe 7, 8, 9 games after getting the wins that we need to definitely stay up mathematically, then what will happen is Potter will have 7, 8, 9 games to really start experimenting more with the team selections to determine which players he wants to keep, which positions still need to be strengthened, so that we can really start the work well in advance, if we haven't already, as to what players we need to go for in the transfer market in the summertime. Look, one win and everything just makes a massive difference, doesn't it? But we did well. To play that way against Arsenal, especially in the way we played in the first half against Brentford at home, was just superb. Of course, seem to be doing a lot better away than we are at home. But I hope on Thursday night, when we have Leicester visiting, we can keep that up. We need a really good performance under the lights as well on Thursday night. And if we can get in a good team performance, another win, that's going to boost the confidence levels yet further. Well done to West Ham United. Fantastic team performance. Well done to Graham Potter for a masterclass in containing a team like Arsenal. I know Arsenal are going to complain, well, we didn't have a striker. We had all these players out injured, etc., etc. We too have got our fair share of injuries. Let's not forget, no Antonio, no Fulkrug, no Crescencio Somerville, no Lucas Paquetá, no Vladimir Soufal. we've got our fair share of players out too. And look, the likes of Paquetá, the likes of Fulkrug, the likes of Crescencio Somerville can be game changers as much as their players like Havertz, etc., Bukayo Saka and all that are out too. So you can only deal with the cards that you can only play with the cards that you dealt with, and the cards that we had, we used in a superb way. Well done. Anyway, that's me. Enough of me. 20 minutes gone. Like I said, if you've enjoyed the show, please do hit the like button. If you've enjoyed the show and you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. I'll be back with the West Ham Weekly on Monday night. And until then, have a good rest of the weekend. What's left of it.